Good morning. Thank you for joining me today. This morning we'll be in Luke chapter 14, verses 7 through 35. Then, when Jesus noticed how the guests chose the places of honor, he told them a parable. He said to them, "When you are invited by someone to a wedding feast, do not take the place of honor, because a person more distinguished than you may have been invited by your host. So the host, who invited both of you, will come and say to you, 'Give this man your place.' Then, ashamed, you will begin to move to the least important place. But when you are invited, go and take the least important place, so that when your host approaches, he will say to you, 'Friend, move up here to a better place.' Then you will be honored in the presence of all who share the meal with you. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, but the one who humbles himself will be exalted." He said also to the man who had invited him, "When you host a dinner or a banquet, don't invite your friends or your brothers or your relatives or rich neighbors, so you can be invited by them in return and get repaid. But when you host an elaborate meal, invite the poor, the crippled, the lame, and the blind. Then you will be blessed, because they cannot repay you, for you will be repaid at the resurrection of the righteous." When one of those at the meal with Jesus heard this, he said to him, "Blessed is everyone who will feast in the kingdom of God." But Jesus said to him, "A man once gave a great banquet and invited many guests. At the time for the banquet, he sent his slave to tell those who had been invited, 'Come, because everything is now ready.' But one after another, they all began to make excuses. The first said to him, 'I've bought a field, and I must go out and see it. Please excuse me.' Another said, 'I've bought 5 yoke of oxen, and I'm going out to examine them. Please excuse me.' Another said, 'I just got married. I cannot come.' So the slave came back and reported this to his master. Then the master of the household was furious and said to his slave, 'Go out quickly to the streets and alleys of the city and bring in the poor, the crippled, the blind, and the lame.' Then the slave said, 'Sir, what you instructed has been done, and there is still room.' So the master said to his slave, 'Go out to the highways and country roads and urge people to come in, so that my house will be filled. For I tell you, not one of those individuals who were invited will taste my banquet.' Now, large crowds were accompanying Jesus, and turning to them he said, 'If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother, and wife and children, and brothers and sisters, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. Whoever does not carry his own cross and follow me cannot be my disciple. For which of you, wanting to build a tower, doesn't sit down first and compute the cost to see if he has enough money to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish the tower, all who see it will begin to make fun of him. They will say, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.' Or what king, going out to confront another king in battle, will not sit down first and determine whether he is able with 10,000 to oppose the one coming against him with 20,000? If he cannot succeed, he will send a representative, while the other is still a long way off, and ask for terms of peace. In the same way, therefore, not one of you can be my disciple if he does not renounce all his own possessions. Salt is good, but if salt loses its flavor, how can its flavor be restored? It is of no value for the soil or for the manure pile. It is to be thrown out. The one who has ears to hear had better listen." Yeah. So you have here Jesus first talking about people who were trying to assume places of honor at a banquet, and admonitions concerning that. A parable about a dinner being hosted, and the original guests not coming, but instead the blind and lame are invited, and then furthermore, everybody in the highways is also invited. And then you have a statement about discipleship here. That is, if anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple. I guess on that topic, when Jesus says hate here, it's not as if it's burning hatred towards everyone and everything, but rather a lesser love. We need to, if we are going to be Jesus' disciple, then we need to give him preeminence in our lives. And nothing else in our lives can come before Jesus. Not fathers, not mothers, not wives, children, or brothers or sisters, or even our own lives, or our possessions. But rather, Jesus asks the first part, the foremost of our lives, the primary deference be given to him. And he compares discipleship here to the building of a tower. And the one who ends up not deferring to Jesus as the primary responsibility of his life, like a person who didn't sit down and calculate the cost of the tower that he was building, and so it ends up only half finished, and rather than becoming a thing to glory in, it becomes a thing of shame, in that it's used as a byword at that point of, oh, look at that guy, he wanted to build a tower, but only got to the foundation before he ran out of money. Yeah, they will say this man began to build and was not able to finish. So I think here Jesus highlights the importance of thinking about what we say when we say, Jesus, you're Lord of my life. And it's not like easy beliefism type thing where we can just give scraps to Jesus and he'll be satisfied with it. Rather, Jesus wants everything. So, let's see what Guzik has to say here. So he told a parable. What follows is a parable, a real-life illustration, side, a biblical truth to give an example. Parables are not fables. Jesus didn't tell fanciful stories with morals. He took real-life situations familiar to all to bring forth God's truth, especially for those open to hear his truth. Yeah. In the same way, you have this physical reality of something that happens in the material world. You also kind of have a divine truth being illustrated by it. When he noted how they chose the best places, at the home of the Pharisee, Jesus noticed how people strategically placed themselves so as to be in the best places, that is, the places of the most honor. In Jesus' day, the seating arrangement at a dinner showed a definite order of prestige or honor. The most honored person sat in a particular seat, the next most honored person in another place, and so on down the line. When you were invited by anyone to a wedding feast, a wedding party was the most important social occasion in Jewish life at that time. The seating arrangement at the table indicated one's standing in the community. Do not sit down in the best place. If one takes the most honored place for himself, he may be asked to be removed if the host would rather have someone else sit there. And then you begin with shame to take the lowest place. Jesus reminded them of the shame that often comes with self-exaltation. When we allow others, especially God, to promote and lift us up, then we don't have the same danger of being exposed as someone who exalted himself. The Bible reminds us that we should not play the self-promotion game. We should do our work hard and unto the Lord, and let God raise us up. For exaltation comes neither from the east, nor from the west, nor from the south, but God is the judge. He puts down one and exalts another. From Psalm 75, verses 6 through 7. Yeah. And there's many more verses that can be quoted concerning that. One that is in my mind right now in the Proverbs is, "It is not glory to seek one's own glory," type thing. Or, "Let another's lips praise you and not your own." Go and sit down in the lowest place. When we are at the lower place, we aren't there just to be noticed so we can go up higher, nor are we miserable there, and letting everyone know by our facial expression that we really don't belong there. There's something wonderful in being content in whatever place God allows you to have. Jesus wasn't merely teaching good manners, but a lifestyle that, in lowliness of mind, esteems others better than himself. From Philippians 2:3. Friend, go up higher. The glory in the presence of those who sit at the table with you. Instead, we joyfully embrace the lower place. We aren't filled with such a high opinion of ourselves that we think we don't belong there. If the master of the feast were to raise us to a more prominent place, then it would be all the more satisfying. Especially in Christian service, there's something wonderful about knowing that God has raised you up instead of raising yourself up to prominence of some sort. For whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. When we seek to take honor to ourselves, we will always be humbled, if not on earth, then for all of eternity. The promise of exaltation for the humble and humiliation for the proud is one ultimately fulfilled in eternity. We may choose the low place and act meek and humble so that others may notice how humble we are. This is a subtle form of spiritual pride that is very dangerous. When we get our own position, either through outward or subtle pride, we can even say, "It was the Lord, it was the Lord." But in our heart of hearts, we know it was us, our own calculation, our own schemes, our own grasping. We should remember the words of George MacDonald, "In whatever man does without God, he must fail miserably or succeed more miserably." Whoever exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. Jesus was the perfect one to teach on this subject, because he fulfilled it perfectly. He is the ultimate example of someone who deserved the highest place, but took the lowest place, and was granted the highest place. When you give a dinner or supper, do not ask your friends. Jesus spoke this specifically to him who invited him. Jesus thought that he chose his guests from a sense of exclusion and pride, lacking love to others. Jesus told him not only ask those who could repay something to the host. Do not ask is more properly, do not habitually ask. It isn't wrong to ever invite your friends, your brothers, and so on, but it is wrong to only invite such people, lest they also invite you back and you be repaid. It is wrong to only associate with people who can advance us or give something to us. It is easy for us to limit our friends to a few comfortable, easy people instead of reaching out to others. You shall be repaid at the of the just. This kind of living will cost us something, yet we will be repaid, with the full repayment coming at the resurrection of the just. Here again, Jesus shows us how important it is to live with an eternal perspective. Let's see. A certain man gave a great supper and invited many. Come, for all things are now ready. In an age before the clock, the date of the banquet was announced long before, but the exact time only was announced the very day. This means that many accepted the invitation when it was first given, yet when the actual time of the banquet came, they were of a different mind. To accept the invitation beforehand and then to refuse it when the day came was a grave insult. Yeah. But they all with one accord began to make excuses. Central to this parable are the excuses that were offered. The excuses are different, but really all the same. They all with one accord began to make excuses. Excuses are made. They are fashioned for convenience and are clung to in desperation. Hope doesn't begin until excuses end. Excuses are curses, and when you have no excuses left, there will be hope for you. From Spurgeon. Yeah, the excuses begin to explain why such a wonderful invitation was rejected. This answers an important question asked by many. If Christianity is so true and so good, why don't more embrace it? Why don't more accept the invitation? Yeah. And it seems like these excuses have to do with concerns of this world, where rather than put God first, they instead have something else that they have to do. I have bought a piece of ground. I have bought 5 yoke of oxen. The first 2 excuses had to do with material things, and were foolish excuses. Only a fool first buys a piece of land and then goes to check it. Only a fool buys 10 oxen and is only interested in testing them after the purchase. I have married a wife. The third excuse had to do with a man who put his family before everything. The best thing we can show to our family is that they are not first in our lives, but that Jesus Christ is. Yeah, ultimately Jesus demands primary deference in our life. Getting tangled up by dog here. So that servant came and reported these things to his master. The master of the feast must have been surprised at the response. He was certainly angry. It was strange and offensive that so many made excuses when given such a wonderful invitation. Yeah. It's like, certainly not a everyday occurrence that you have some sort of banquet or feast, and it happens at considerable expense of the person setting it up. So it's just like, you should make time, frankly, for the for the event. But just because you should doesn't mean that you do. Go out quickly into the streets and lanes of the city, and bring in here the poor, and the maimed, and the lame, and the blind. If those first invited to the feast refused, there would still be a feast, because the master would not prepare a banquet in vain. We see that Jesus responded to the man's exclamation, "Blessed is he who shall eat bread in the kingdom of God," by asking, "You admire the messianic banquet, yet are you ready to receive the invitation to come? Will you make excuses?" This is an especially relevant question when one considers the sort of people who will also be at the feast, redeemed sinners, and the maimed and lame and blind. Compel them to come in, that my house may be filled. The master of the feast was determined that some would enjoy what he had prepared. If those originally invited made excuses, the master commanded his servants to use all persuasion to fill the feast. Tragically, Augustine and others used the phrase, "compel them to come in," as a justification to coerce people into Christianity, sometimes using persecution and torture. It was taken as a command to coerce people into the Christian faith. It was used as a defense of the Inquisition, the thumbscrew, the rack, the threat of death and imprisonment. the campaigns against heretics, all those things which are the shame of Christianity. Bruce on compel reflects in the first place the urgent desire of the master to have an absolutely full house. In the second, the feeling that pressure will be needed to overcome the incredulity of country people as the invitation to them being meant seriously. They would be apt to laugh in the servant's face. Yeah. Which, I just have this picture in mind of a royal herald coming up and coming up to the stereotypical peasant in the mud from Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and just saying, "You are summoned to a feast today in the king's palace," and it's just, what, me? So, I think that's part of what's meant by the compel there. Of no, really, you're invited. If anyone comes to me and does not hate his father and mother, wife and children, brothers and sisters, yes, and his own life also, he cannot be my disciple. Jesus boldly said that the true disciple comes to him without reservation, setting Jesus first. Other relationships are definitely of lower priority than faithfulness and obedience to Jesus. Yeah. Yeah, and I think this is another important reason of why you should read stuff in context. If you just say, well, the verse says that, it says to those closest to me. If you just woodenly say that without considering the heart of Jesus being expressed elsewhere, then you'll get a completely wrong idea of what Jesus is asking here. He is asking for complete deference. And not a hatred of everything other than him. This was an audacious demand. None of the prophets or apostles asked for such personal commitment and devotion. If Jesus was not and is not God, this would be idolatry and probably madness. Napoleon understood this principle when he said, "I know men, and I tell you that Jesus Christ is no mere man. Between him and every other person in the world, there is no possible term of comparison. Alexander the Great, Caesar, Charlemagne, and I have founded empires. But on what did we rest the creations of our genius? Upon force. Jesus Christ founded his empire upon love. In this hour, millions of men would die for him." Yeah. There's many men who have founded empires based on force. And does not hate. Repeatedly in the Bible, we see that Jesus founded a way of love, not hate. Yet Jesus uses the strong word hate to show how great the difference must be between our allegiance to Jesus and our allegiance to everyone and everything else. It is only in a comparative sense and not literally that it can possibly be used. And to be very clear, Christ said that we are to hate our own life. The great idolatry comes not from what is bad, but from what is good, such as love and family relationships. The greatest threat to the best often comes from second best. Yeah. And whoever does not bear his cross and come after me cannot be my disciple. Here Jesus said to the great multitudes something very similar to what he had said privately to all his disciples, in that being a follower of Jesus is something like bearing a cross, which again was an instrument of painful, terrible torture. Cannot be my disciple. Jesus made it clear that only cross-bearers can be his disciples. Therefore, we sometimes may understate the demands of Jesus when we present the gospel. We can give them the impression that coming to Jesus is only to believe some facts instead of to yield a life. Sit down first and count the cost. In the parable of the tower, Jesus said, "Sit down and see if you can afford to follow me." In the parable of the king, Jesus said, "Sit down and see if you can afford to refuse my demands." Jesus pointed to the idea that the work of his kingdom was like building and battling. Each of these are usually more costly than one thinks before beginning. Whoever of you does not forsake all that he has cannot be my disciple. We have a difficult challenge in understanding and communicating the gospel here. There are two extremes to avoid. We can never give people the impression that they have to clean up their lives before they come to Jesus. That is like washing up before you take a bath. Yet, likewise, we can never give people the impression that Jesus won't want to clean up their lives with their cooperation after they come to him. It is important for every potential disciple, those of the great multitudes that followed and heard Jesus, to consider the cost of being a disciple of Jesus. Yet those who chose to reject and resist God should count that cost as well. What possible good can come from opposing God? It costs something to be the disciple of Jesus. It costs more to reject him. Yeah. Weigh the cost of both here. Forsake all that he has. The ancient Greek phrase had the idea to say goodbye to. Jesus told us to say goodbye to everything we have, entrusting it to Jesus. If the salt has lost its flavor, a salt that loses its saltiness is of no use. A professed believer who through corruption or assimilation loses distinctiveness, flavor, or preservative value is of no use as a follower of Jesus. Yeah, he's lost everything that makes him a Christian. It is neither fit for the land nor for the dunghill. Salt is only useful when it has the nature of salt. A Christian is only useful when he or she has the nature of Christ. Then all the tax collectors and the sinners drew near to him to hear him. Among the great multitude, in Luke 14:25, the most notoriously sinful drew near to Jesus in response to his strong words about discipleship. They did not necessarily give Jesus their trusting love and allegiance immediately, but they did want to hear more. Sinners and outcasts saw the love prompting the bold call to discipleship, and they responded. People respond to a challenging gospel if the truth is spoken in love. We do a great disservice when we appear to soften the demands of the gospel, either for others or for ourselves. Carrying on here, Psalm chapter 80, verses 1 through 19. O shepherd of Israel, pay attention, you who lead Joseph like a flock of sheep. You who sit enthroned above the winged angels, reveal your splendor. In the sight of Ephraim, Benjamin, and Manasseh, reveal your power. Come and deliver us. O God, restore us. Smile on us. Then we will be delivered. O Lord God, invincible warrior, how long will you remain angry at your people while they pray to you? You have given them tears as food. You have made them drink tears by the measure. You have made our neighbors dislike us, and our enemies insult us. O God, invincible warrior, restore us. Smile on us. Then we will be delivered. You uprooted a vine from Egypt. You drove out nations and transplanted it. You cleared the ground for it. It took root and filled the land. The mountains were covered by its shadow, the highest cedars by its branches. Its branches reached the Mediterranean Sea, and its shoots the Euphrates River. Why did you break down its walls, so that all who pass by pluck its fruit? The wild boars of the forest ruin it. The insects of the field feed on it. O God, invincible warrior, come back. Look down from heaven and take notice. Take care of this vine, the root your right hand planted, the shoot you made to grow. It is burned and cut down. They die because you are displeased with them. May you give support to the one you have chosen, to the one whom you raised up for yourself. Then we will not turn away from you. Revive us, and we will pray to you. O Lord God, invincible warrior, restore us. Smile on us. Then we will be delivered. Yeah. Just highlighting the cycle of enjoying goodness, turning from God, having calamity fall on you, and then returning returning to God and asking, repenting, essentially, and then asking for God's favor again, so that abundance might again flow in the land. And then finally, Proverbs chapter 12, verses 27 and 28. The lazy person does not roast his prey, but personal possessions are precious to the diligent. In the path of righteousness there is life, but another path leads to death. Yeah, the lazy person does not roast his prey. He goes to all the trouble of going out and hunting an animal, and then when he gets to the very end of it, he fumbles and doesn't even roast it to eat it. But personal possessions are precious to the diligent. They make full use of what they have. In the path of righteousness there is life, but another path leads to death. This verse highlights to me the exclusion of the path of righteousness. That is, there's only one path that leads to life, the narrow door, and all others lead to death. Anyhow, thank you so much for joining me today. Hope you have a great day. Bye.